Hello, I'm Mark Zwilling, Artistic Director of the Denver Women's Chorus.
And I'm Allison Dozier, Assistant Director of the Denver Women's Chorus.
We want to thank you for joining us for March, Sing, Vote, and tell you a little bit more about what you're about to hear. Back in 2018, the Denver Women's Chorus joined Gala Chorus's Dr. Catherine Roma Women Composer Commissioning Project, along with 17 other choruses around the country. Together, we co-commissioned an original choral work. The work, titled Lifting as We Climb, was created by renowned choral composer Joan Szymko.
Lifting as We Climb was intended to be performed in 2020 as a celebration of the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. It tells the story of the suffrage movement in the words of the suffragists themselves, and calls us all to action in protecting the right to vote they fought for decades to win.
The chorus began rehearsing Lifting as We Climb in August of 2019. Our singers found the music to be challenging at times and also educational and inspirational. The performance you will see today is from our January 2020 concert called Make Them Hear You.
We wanted to share this performance with you now as we approach the 2020 elections. Did you know that more than 2 million Americans have already cast ballots? Exercising our right to vote is more important than ever. You can register to vote and find other voter information at vote411.org.
As you may know, arts organizations around the country and the globe have been dramatically impacted by the pandemic. Our chorus is no exception. We are currently accepting donations to help our chorus persist until we're able to sing together again. Donations made to DWC can help cover administrative costs, allow us to continue and create online concerts, and help us commission original works telling the stories that need to be told. You can make a donation today by texting DWC to 243725.
In bringing you this video, we're excited to be collaborating again with the League of Women Voters, just like we did back in January. And we want to thank them for their support and partnership. Stay tuned for a message from them. And thank you again for joining us for March, Sing, Vote.
Hello, my name is Ann Duncan, and I represent the League of Women Voters of Denver. We're happy to be partnering again with the Denver Women's Chorus in celebration of the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote. The League of Women Voters was founded in 1920. From the beginning, the League has been an activist organization whose members believe that citizens should play a critical role in advocacy. The League has always been nonpartisan. We neither support nor oppose candidates for office, but we do advocate for and against policies based on national, state, and local positions. Areas of focus include voting rights, women's rights, education, and healthcare. The months leading up to a general election are our busiest in voter registration and voter education. This year, we've trained 78 people to go to registration events all over the city. We've had members in nursing homes, rehab facilities, health clinics, churches, and the Denver County Jails. Every election cycle, we work with the City of Denver's Channel 8 and Inc. to present the Denver Decides forums and candidate debates. These nonpartisan events allow candidates to lay out their positions and representatives of groups supporting or opposing ballot issues to present their arguments. This year, the debate team from George Washington High School will be making the arguments for and against 2 of the state ballot issues. The forums will be recorded and aired on Channel 8 and posted online. Together with the League of Women Voters of Colorado, we published pamphlets on the state and Denver ballot issues with an explanation of each issue and the arguments for and against. Our Speakers Bureau is busy producing Zoom meetings on ballot issues, with speakers providing explanations of each measure, the pro and con arguments, and answering questions. The League also sponsors Vote 411, a national website that provides nonpartisan information on elections, candidates, and ballot issues tailored to your address. If you'd like to help the League in our work, please join us. You can get information about membership, which is open to everyone, on our website, lwvdenver.org. Thanks again to the Denver Women's Chorus for this wonderful opportunity and for this inspiring concert.
here and tired of fighting again and again those powers that seek to disenfranchise citizens of these United States. But as radical reformer Lucretia Mott once said,
"Any great change must expect opposition because it shakes the very foundation of privilege."
We are here and awake to the reality that the right to vote remains as fragile as it is fundamental, and that the vote is a fundamental right of citizenship. We are still here and still alive, and singing and commemorating and celebrating those radical reformers who led the way in.
In stirring up the world to recognize the rights of women.
Susan B. Anthony.
Forget what the world thinks of you stepping out of your place. Think your best thoughts. Speak your best words. Work your best works looking to your own conscience for approval.
Did I not feel that the time had come for the questions of women's wrongs to be laid before the public? Did I not believe that woman herself must do this work? For women alone understand the height, depth, the breadth of her degradation.
Elizabeth Cady Stanton spoke those words in her address to the 1848 Seneca Falls Convention, a groundbreaking gathering of progressive men and women who met to discuss the social, civil, and religious conditions and rights of women. Stanton was instrumental in drafting the convention's Declaration of Sentiments, with resolutions fashioned after the Declaration of Independence.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. The history of mankind is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations on the part of man toward woman. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
Those facts laid out in the sentiments described gross inequalities in women's education, property rights, employment, religion, and in marriage. Upon marrying, a woman merged with her husband and became civilly dead. She had no rights of custody over her own children.
He has endeavored in every way that he could to destroy her confidence in her own powers, to lessen her self-respect, and to make her willing to lead a dependent and abject life.
Over 2 days, the sentiments and resolutions were debated, especially
resolved that it is the duty of the women of this country to secure to themselves their sacred right to the elective franchise.
Stanton's insistence on including a resolution demanding the vote was thought too radical by most of those assembled, including Lucretia Mott.
"Lizzie, thee will make us ridiculous."
It met great opposition, but with the support of Stanton's friend, the esteemed Frederick Douglass, the demand for suffrage passed. The torch had been lit, a movement begun. Over the following decade, national and regional women's rights conventions were held annually. The circle of women engaged in the debate widened steadily. At the center were Elizabeth Cady Stanton, the new movement's philosopher; Lucretia Mott, its moral force; Lucy Stone, its voice; and Susan Anthony, its organizer.
Our religion, laws, customs are all founded on the belief that woman was made for man.
The world has never yet seen a truly great and virtuous nation, because in the degradation of woman, the very fountains of life are poisoned at their source.
In education, in marriage, in religion, in everything, disappointment is the lot of woman. It shall be the business of my life to deepen this disappointment in every woman's heart until she bows down to it no longer.
Organize, agitate, educate must be our war cry.
Stanton's and Anthony's relationship, begun in 1851 and lasting over a half-century, was to become one of the most consequential partnerships in American history. They were collaborators and co-conspirators, confidants and critics, clashing sisters. Stanton was thought and Anthony action.
I forged thunderbolts and she fired them.
Like Mott and Anthony, many of the early advocates for women's rights drew upon their Quaker values upholding gender equality. All of the early advocates for women's rights were also ardent abolitionists. The two causes sprang from the same seeds of moral reform.
Let woman then go on, not asking favors, but claiming as a right the removal of all hindrances to her elevation in the scale of being.
Justice. We ask liberty. We ask that all civil and political rights that belong to citizens of the United States be guaranteed to us and to our daughters forever.
We take our stand on the solidarity of humanity, the oneness of life, and the injustice of all special favoritisms, whether of sex, race, country, or condition. If one link of the chain is broken, the chain is broken.
From one half of its citizens because the word people, by an unparalleled exhibition of lexicon-graphical acrobatics, has been turned and twisted to mean those who were shrewd and wise to be born boys instead of girls, or those who took the trouble to be born white instead of black.
All we need is to continue to speak the truth fearlessly, and we will add to our number those who will turn the scale to the side of equal and full justice in all things.
Men, their rights and nothing more. Women, their rights and nothing less.
At the first National Women's Rights Convention after the Civil War, suffrage was the hot topic. A constitutional amendment, the 15th, had been proposed by Congress that would establish the voting rights of black male citizens. Stanton and Anthony had lobbied mightily to get the 15th Amendment to outlaw discrimination based upon sex as well as upon race. They were outraged that the franchise was being denied to women at this opportune moment. For many years, they had lobbied mightily for emancipation. Now, truly, it was a woman's turn. Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, a prominent African-American abolitionist, poet, and suffragist, rose to speak.
We are all bound up together in one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on the weakest and the feeblest of its members without receiving the curse in its own soul.
Harper would have none of the equivalencies being made between women's status and slavery.
You white women speak here of rights. I speak of wrongs. This grand and glorious revolution, which has commenced, will fail to reach its climax of success until throughout the length and the breadth of the American Republic, the nation shall be so colorblind as to know no man by the color of his skin or the curl of his hair. It will then have no privileged class trampling upon and outraging the unprivileged class, but will then be one great privileged nation whose privilege will be to produce the loftiest manhood and womanhood that humanity can attain.
Humanity.
And yet, the 15th Amendment divided the movement. While many continued to support its passage and the goal of universal suffrage, Stanton and Anthony became determined in their belief that women needed their own constitutional amendment.
The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex.
A white woman has one handicap to overcome, that of sex. I have two, both sex and race. Colored men have only one, that of race. Colored women are the only group in this country with two heavy handicaps to overcome, both that of race as well as that of sex.
Until recently, the story of black women suffragists has not been told. There were important figures from the beginning of the century, but as the 19th century drew to a close, a legion of black women from both North and South formed groups dedicated to educational uplift and social justice. Led by women such as Mary Church Terrell, more and more black women became supportive of the cause of women's suffrage.
And so, lifting as we climb, onward and upward we go, struggling and striving and hoping that the buds and blossoms of our desires, born of success achieved in the past, with a keen sense of responsibility, which we shall continue to assume, we look forward to a future large with promise and hope, seeking no favors because of our color, nor patronage because of our needs. We knock at the bar of justice, asking an equal chance.
Sadly, many white suffragists working for the cause did not extend an equal chance to their African American sisters. The National American Women's Suffrage Association, the NAWSA, with Anthony at its helm, employed a Southern strategy to appease the segregationists, as it was widely believed that women's suffrage would not be obtained without their support. The seeds of distrust planted in this era echoed the strained relationship between white feminists and black women in the women's rights movement of the 1960s and 70s, and to this present day.
Between the Civil War and the final passage and ratification of the 19th Amendment, two more generations of women's rights activists had taken on the fight. Again, there were divisions, this time about strategy. Alice Paul, young, fearless, willing to use new militant tactics, broke forth from the National American Women's Suffrage Association and formed the National Women's Party. From picketing, from parading in front of the White House, to prison terms, the National Women's Party gave maximum coverage to the suffrage movement.
Carrie Chapman Catt, to whom Susan B. Anthony passed the torch, was every bit the organizer as Anthony, but was wary of radical tactics. She believed in a more diplomatic approach. Ultimately, Alice Paul and Carrie Catt, militancy and diplomacy both, carried the 19th Amendment through to its passage in Congress in 1919. In a dramatic political finale, Tennessee became the required 36th state to ratify it, and on August 18, 1920, the Susan B. Anthony Amendment became the law of the land.
While we rightly celebrate the bold and selfless efforts of the generations of women of all races and backgrounds who fought valiantly for the vote, let us also remember that the 19th Amendment is inherently intertwined with the 15th Amendment and the ongoing struggle for all voting rights.
In the decades following the passage of women's suffrage, just as Jim Crow laws and violent threats kept Black men from exercising their 15th Amendment rights, Black women were routinely turned away from the ballot box. Not until decades later, with the passage and renewal of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, were the tools of disenfranchisement finally outlawed. The VRA's mandated federal oversight ensures that state and local governments cannot pass laws or policies that deny American citizens the equal right to vote based on race.
On June 25, 2013, the Supreme Court swept away a key provision of this landmark civil rights law in Shelby County versus Holder. That decision has led to a resurgence in voter suppression laws. What better way to honor the suffrage centennial than to address the ways in which citizens continue to be disenfranchised by voter suppression regulations that strongly resemble those of over a century ago?
Voter ID laws.
Closure of polling places, forcing long lines.
Misinformation campaigns.
Increased restrictions on early voting.
Purging of voter rolls.
Voting rights are under attack in America. There is a designated and systematic attempt to prevent millions of elderly voters, young voters, students, minority, and low-income voters from exercising their constitutional right to engage in a democratic process.
Tonight, we are here and we are awake. We praise and we protest. And so let us also celebrate today's reformers and activists.
In Atlanta, the New Georgia Project works with the local and national civil rights organizations to defend voting rights and to advocate for policies that expand access to voting.
Vote Riders, a nonpartisan nonprofit organization, works to educate voters on ensuring they have the proper form of ID to successfully vote in their state.
Rock the Vote provides guides for voter registration. This nonprofit seeks to engage and build the voting rights of young people.
Ahead of the 2020 election, Four Directions, a Native American voting rights advocacy group, plans to work together with tribes to establish formal mailing addresses for voters in North Dakota and elsewhere to ensure that voter ID laws do not hinder Native voters.
Every moment is an organizing opportunity. Every person a potential activist. Every minute a chance to change the world.
This is our next battle for our democracy, one where all eligible citizens can have their say on what we want for our country.
Struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation.
Any great change must expect opposition because it shakes the very foundation of privilege.
All we need is to continue to speak the truth fearlessly, and we will add to our number those who will turn the scale to the side of equal and full justice in all things.
The way to right the wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them.
Truth is the only safe ground to stand upon.
Failure is impossible.
Life is a hard battle anyway, but if we can laugh and sing as we fight the good fight of freedom, it'll make it go a little easier. I will not let my life's light be determined by the darkness around me.
Shake, we shake.